Everyone remembers where they were when Germany beat Brazil 7-1, not because it was a football match, but because it was something closer to a public execution happening on Brazilian soil in front of a nation that had built its entire identity around the idea that this simply could not happen to them. And the team that did it went on to win the whole tournament 4 days later in one of the most composed and clinical displays of football the modern World Cup has ever seen. This is the story of Germany's greatest triumph, how they did it, what it cost them, and why 12 years later they are still chasing that feeling. To understand how special 2014 was, you have to understand the road that got them there, because Germany did not stumble into that tournament. They built towards it deliberately and patiently over almost a decade. After a humbling group stage exit at Euro 2004 in Portugal, where they finished bottom of their group without winning a single game, the German football establishment was shaken to its core and responded by completely restructuring the country's entire youth development system, investing in academies, coaching education, and scouting infrastructure at a level that very few nations had ever attempted. The results of that investment started showing up around 2010, but 2014 was where it all came together into something perfect. The squad Joachim Löw brought to Brazil was one of the most technically complete Germany had ever assembled, blending experience with an attacking quality the country had sometimes lacked in previous generations. Thomas Müller was the engine, intelligent, selfless, and consistently in the right place at the right time across 7 matches. Toni Kroos controlled tempo from midfield with a passing range that made the game look slow around him. Mats Hummels was commanding at the back, alongside a defense that conceded only 4 goals across the entire tournament. And then there was Mesut Ozil, the creative heart of everything Germany did in the final third, a player of Turkish heritage who had become one of the most celebrated footballers in the world by threading passes through gaps that other players simply could not see. Germany moved through the group stage with a 4-0 demolition of Portugal, a 1-0 win over the United States, and a 2-2 draw with Ghana that was far more dramatic than anyone expected, before navigating knockout victories over Algeria and France, both hard-fought and controlled, showing a team that knew exactly how to manage tournament pressure. And then came July 8th, 2014 in Belo Horizonte, and one of the most extraordinary 45 minutes in the history of the sport. Brazil entered that semi-final without Neymar, injured, and without Captain Thiago Silva, suspended, but a close match was still expected because Brazil were Brazil, and playing against them on home soil always carried a weight that affected the opposition. Germany dismantled them in a way nobody had imagined possible. Müller scored in the 11th minute from a corner, completely unmarked, which set the tone for everything that followed. Miroslav Klose made it 2 on 22 minutes, breaking Ronaldo's all-time World Cup scoring record in the process, becoming the highest scoring player in the tournament's history with his 16th career World Cup goal. Then Toni Kroos scored in the 24th minute and scored again just 79 seconds later. Sami Khedira added a 5th before halftime. Germany has scored 4 goals in 6 minutes and 30 seconds, a record that still stands in World Cup history. The final score was 7-1, and the Brazilian players left the pitch in tears, while some of their own fans gave the Germans a standing ovation, not because they wanted Germany to win, but because they had just witnessed something they had never seen before and instinctively recognized its scale. The final against Argentina 4 days later at the Maracanã in Rio was a completely different test, tight, physical, and stretched into extra time without a goal. Joachim Löw turned to his bench in the 88th minute and brought on Mario Götze, a 22-year-old who had barely played during the knockout rounds and told him simply to show the world he was better than Messi. In the 113th minute, André Schürrle ran down the left and crossed, and Götze controlled the ball on his chest and volleyed it into the net with his left foot in a movement so precise and instinctive that it barely seemed to have taken conscious thought. Germany won 1-0, becoming the first European nation to win a World Cup on South American soil, and Philipp Lahm lifted the trophy in the Maracanã as fireworks exploded overhead. And then the unraveling began, and it started with a photograph. Before the 2018 World Cup in Russia, Özil and teammate İlkay Gündoğan were pictured with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, and what followed destroyed one of the most important players in German football history. Özil was jeered in warm-up games, subjected to racist abuse from politicians and media, and made a scapegoat for Germany's group stage exit in Russia when the defending champions were eliminated in the most humiliating possible fashion. Shortly after, Özil retired from international football at 29 years old with 92 caps, writing one of the most powerful statements in the sport's recent history with the line that burned through the entire debate: "I am German when we win, but an immigrant when we lose." The German Football Association later admitted they had made mistakes in their handling of the situation. But Özil never played for Germany again. That exit in 2018 began a run of tournament failures that has now stretched across 3 consecutive World Cups. In 2022, they went out in the group stage again in Qatar. And just days ago in 2026, Germany were knocked out by Paraguay on penalties in the round of 32, losing a World Cup shootout for the very first time in their history, a record that had stood completely intact since 1974. And somehow, that makes the memory of 2014 even more vivid, because it shows exactly how fine the line is between a golden generation and a decade of decline, and how quickly a country that was once the undisputed best team on the planet can find itself asking what went wrong and where it all started to fall apart.